We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. By the time you hear this, it is Thursday. I'm recording it Wednesday night, and I have two guests with me tonight. We have Howard with that goofy fucking hat. But Howard, you know from being on the show before and some lives and such. He's an older guy like me, but apparently he's going Jane Fonda on the shit and starting to protest and doing some stuff. So welcome, Howard.
Thanks. I love being here.
No, we love having you because you have some great insights and you're out there on the streets doing what needs to be done. Now, the other guest is related to Howard. Now, Felipe, good looking kid, so it's clearly not a blood relation. But Felipe is your son-in-law, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Hey, Felipe, how you doing? And how'd you get stuck on a podcast with a couple of old fucks?
Hey, no, thanks for having me. No, absolutely. I'm doing great. A long day, but I'm happy to be here. And I first heard about this podcast I would say a few weeks ago. Howard shared a couple links, and I had a chance to kind of dig in and listen while I'm driving. I drive quite a bit, so it's easy to just throw it in the background and see what it is, and see what other people think about what's going on, and just regardless of what topic is they're talking about. A lot of times it's just pretty cool to see, to hear, not see, because a lot of times I'm not watching, but to hear a different perspective, as a whole. So
Well, one of the reasons why Howard wanted you on here is because of the things we've been talking about, the whole white supremacy, the deportations, and all that type of stuff. He wanted you on here because you're his son-in-law. Your parents are from Mexico, correct?
yes,
So they're immigrants, um, and you're living in a small town in Minnesota. So the problems we hear about are things you're experiencing firsthand. Would you say that's true?
yeah, absolutely. We have, prior to this, I can tell you that I felt part of the community, and I felt part of this community since I moved in here in 2010. Um, but since since the whole ICE situation came upon, and we started to see a little bit um, more, uh, I wouldn't say pressure, but um, more presence. Of just the aspect of ICE and the negativity around it. The community really stepped up, and it made everybody feel like this is your home too, right? You guys belong here 100% of the time. And yeah, I mean, it's been a great few weeks, to be honest. Very humbling, very um, warming, not only for myself, but for everybody that has been impacted, and everybody that helps, volunteers, and does all the work they've been doing for the last few weeks. So
Now, Howard, you wanted to make sure Felipe was on here to give kind of a different perspective. You're an old guy out protesting. I'm an old guy sitting in my living room talking shit. But people are experiencing this firsthand. Um, for me, I have a sense that you and I are on the same page. As old white guys, we don't get the harassment from other old white guys, but we both probably have the same issue. You fuck with my kids or you fuck with my grandkids, a couple of old guys are going to go John Wick on your shit because you're not going to tolerate that. And I presume that's kind of how you feel about it too. I know you were bouncing around all over the state when ICE was popping through here.
Yeah. ICE was pretty active, and that's kind of, what I'd like to hear him talk about because I know one time, weren't we there on a Friday night? We had all the kids out to the sports arena, and then the next day it got raided. And then a couple mornings, I'd call my son-in-law, and he was fucking chasing them around. And it's like, hey, do you think you should be doing that? But I'm not going to tell another man how to protect his family. And if that's, I felt, confident if that's what he needed to be doing, that's, and he did it. But it was scary to me because that's their dad. That's who they depend on. And, he
Yeah.
could get arrested just as a lot faster than you or me, Mike. That's for damn sure, That's
now,
what I want you to talk about.
now, Felipe, you were born in the United States, correct?
Yeah, yeah. I was born in Washington State. Um, my parents were apple farm workers back in the day, and I lived there for about 5 years before we made the switch back to Mexico in 2000. No, yeah, in 1995. My mom, my dad, and my brother and I moved down to Mexico and kind of like started life all over again for my brother and I. My dad already he was a farmer. My dad family has always been farmers, ranchers. So for them, it wasn't really a transition. For us, it was. And then I made it back here when I was 12. Kind of bounced around back and forth. Between Washington, back to Mexico a couple of years. Then I came back to Washington, swing over to Minnesota to go to high school here. So just very nomad. I would say moved a lot when I was younger. But then I made this town my home since 2010, and I've been here since then. We're not going anywhere. So
Now, what was your impression when you decided to marry Howard's daughter? Now, I haven't met Howard's daughter, so I don't know anything about her. But when you go to meet Howard, Howard's kind of a gruff old guy. He's actually younger than I am, so I can't really complain about that. But Howard's got a little bit of a checkered past. You don't know if he's going to hug you or fucking shank you. How did you feel at first when you met Howard?
I was. Nikki said, you got to be open-minded. You don't know what you're going to get. But I can see right through Howard. He had good intentions, man. He was very honest, and I take that very serious. Very upfront about things, what he expected, what he envisioned, what he did not want happening, and stuff. So conversations were very fluid. Nothing too crazy. I think the first few times I think we were both very reserved. He was here to see his daughter and spend the time that he could with her, and I was there to get to know him. So, and we have a great relationship. My kids enjoy Howard. Our kids enjoy Howard. My dad enjoys Howard. Everybody in our family here just loves him. So,
well, yeah, I was going to ask you about the kids. Being a grandpa, I'm a grandpa too. When you're young and you're getting older, you have all these aspirations. I'm going to be rich and famous. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. My only aspiration right now is to be the coolest grandfather ever, and because I had two grandfathers that were pretty cool. Since Howard pretty much is an old child himself, I would imagine your kids and him get along pretty well.
absolutely, they adore him. Every time we go out there, and we and we always talk about this. We should go out there a little bit more, but we get busy, and it's not an excuse. But the kids enjoy him. Just being around. His daughter, Trinity, and then the kids. They all have a great relationship. And then you throw fishing in the mix. It's game over. Best grandpa ever. So.
Well, and that's the thing is grandpas play a different role than I always say to my son and daughter-in-law, I say, I won't tell you how to raise your kids. You don't tell me how to raise my grandkids, because I'm here to have fucking fun. And I'm just warning you ahead of time, because this is what I have with my grandparents. You guys do the discipline and do all that stuff, but me and the grandkids, we're going to get into some shit.
Yeah, that's pretty much
the same.
Pretty much the same. Yeah, we have 100% trust in Howard that he's gonna put some good sense into the kids every time he's around. So,
well, you were gonna say something, Howard?
No, I'm just listening. I never hear this many nice things about me ever.
Well, we're stopping now.
Politician.
Yeah, I got this out of the way, so we're stopping that shit now. So,
yeah.
Felipe, being in Minnesota and being in a small community and having a period of time when ICE was out there, how were you feeling at that point? What was your experiences with ICE in where you were living with your kids? And
yeah, absolutely. So, I would say, we were really lucky in this town to not get hit as other towns. But the times that we did, we actually had a meeting with the community. There was a gentleman who put this meeting up to kind of go over just the scheme of things of how to handle ICE if it was in your town. How to protest, what to do, what not to do, things just to keep us informed that other cities were doing that we were not doing here, in our town. And
Right.
I got to tell you, when I showed up to that meeting, I was expecting about 14, 15 people to be there. There was more than 100. It was a last minute meeting. It was about an hour long. Everybody was attending there in the library. It was packed. There was no seating whatsoever, right? So me walking in there and seeing 100 plus people there was such a cool thing to experience, because I never felt the kind of support, right, towards a Hispanic community. And then we had that meeting on a Tuesday, and I would say a couple of weeks later, we had one day where ICE was just here all over town.
Okay.
I mean, that was 7:00 in the morning, and kids are getting ready to school. They hit a house right next to an elementary school, so you can just imagine the commotion, right?
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah.
This house was on Main Street. You had about 6 ICE officer cars there, and about 20 officers just circling the house around. And it was pretty cool to see. I remember it was a Thursday morning, and we called work off. I told my guys we're not going to go to work today. I got other things to do. But we had a group of individuals who were monitoring the streets when ICE was present, and that was the first test we had. Literally, I joined them, and it was all day long. I mean, we were out there until like 5, 6 p.m. right from the morning, and just to see the community.
What did you do?
So we had no whistles, so we had none of that, but we do have an app. We had an app where we communicated with each other. The rapid response group basically went out, and they were chatting with each other, confirming if it was ICE or not. And once they got confirmed, they were just chasing them around. I mean, they were. So it's such a small community that we kind of know each other. So, every time we knew that we're at a house, we would just basically take a photo of the house, send it in the group, find out who it was, and we would let them know, hey, they're here, right? I mean, we didn't even know a lot of times who they were looking for, but some of the people were actually get off the cars and go talk to them. And their whole idea was, it was like, we're here for somebody and we're here for somebody only. But in reality, we all know that wasn't true, and
Absolutely. Yeah.
we had a gentleman who got pulled over in town, and he's a longtime Hispanic resident. They literally told him he got pulled over because his plates were registered to a Hispanic name. So that was the very morning. That was the first time we had presence in this town. And I got to tell you, I mean, feeling wise, I felt a necessity to be out there just because we had other people out there, and I know I could get arrested, but it wasn't going to get more than that. They have to let me go. I'm a U.S. citizen. So I grabbed I remember I grabbed my passport, put it in my truck, emptied all my documents from my truck. I took all the money from my wallet, all my credit cards, just left my ID and my passport with me, right? I didn't want to go anything messy on it, whatever. But we were out patrolling the streets and just, I would say, like, chasing them around. They felt very triggered that we were doing that. The first day, I don't think they picked anybody up. It was a long day, but it was worth it. The fact that the community. Go ahead.
Another story I'd like to hear about is the one you told me where you kind of figured out how they were finding people, and it was people that were here trying to go through the process. You want to go? Go on. Yeah. It's your story, not mine.
So on the second actual day that they showed up, they were actually, we noticed a pattern after a few houses. We knew who were leaving there, and there were actually people who were either, my understanding was they were under asylum or refugee status, and they were going through that process. They applied, They have to wait. A lot of them get sometimes like a house arrest kind of monitor or a phone that kind of lets them know where they are. Um, and those are the people that we're knocking and looking for, regardless if it was because they missed an appointment with immigration or simply because they were just looking for them. So the word got spread quite a bit, and that it was some folks from Nicaragua. So some of those folks actually ended up leaving town. Some other ones just never left their houses for a few days. So it was kind of hard. That was the conclusion some of us came with that we saw. That we're targeting some of those people, but what can you really expect?
Yeah.
They're going to grab who they can the easy, because at one point this became not about the people. I think it became more about a number, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, you're a citizen. You were born in this country. You never lived in another country. And you said you felt comfortable that they would have to let you go if they did pick you up. And you prepared for that by taking everything out of your truck, out of your pockets, and just put your passport in there. Did you ever think at the time, having grown up here your whole life, how fucking ridiculous and how embarrassing that this is happening in this country?
It was the first thing that went through my mind.
Okay.
I talked to Nicole about it. She wanted to come out there. I said, no, there's no need. If I get in trouble, I will get out. She will get out too. She don't look Mexican. Okay. She don't look Hispanic, but at the end of the day, I feel like I'm a little more strong, emotionally, mentally, to go through this than her. I would not put her in that position, right? So just the fact that other people were other people that could protest and that could go out there and chase those guys around, why not join them? Show them that we're here. I mean, you have the opportunity to do it.
Let me ask you, did you think about this? You felt confident that if you got picked up, you had the passport, you're a citizen, there should be no reason that they hold on to you. However, you don't know how they're going to treat you between the time they have you and the time they let you go. We know that there are citizens of this country that are in fucking detention. So it still had to be pretty scary to look at the prospect of being picked up when you had no business being picked up. But that, like you say, was about numbers and color of skin. You look Mexican, let's take him and we'll suss it out later. And in the process, you have to struggle and suffer through whatever bullshit they put you through. Did you ever think of it that way, or did you think they'll pick me up and they'll just let me go?
Oh no, it was never about just pick me up and let me go. I knew it was going to be a tough one. It was going to be, who knows how many days it's going to take. Who knows what they're going to do. And obviously, the idea was if they do want to detain me, if they do want to, whatever, put me in a truck, it's not like I'm going to fight, right?
Yeah.
But we, Nick and I did talk about what could happen. But here's the response of it. After the first day, we were out monitoring the streets when they were present. It only got bigger, right? Every single time there was an ICE agent in town, 15 cars were following him from every single angle. That guy could not turn from one street to another without another citizen of this town watching them and recording them. They were, at one point they stopped at a restaurant, one of the Mexican restaurants on the back side of the restaurant to rest, and the owner went and talked to them, and they were saying that they were too tired of us chasing them around. They just needed a break.
There were some people I talked to outside the state that were amazed that people like people in your town and in Minneapolis were doing that, following him around after they shot Renee Good and after they shot Preddy. Most people thought, including probably ICE, that once that happened, everybody be scared, afraid, and backed off. And I explained to them, as a Minnesotan born and raised here, we do have Minnesota nice and we're decent people. But if you fuck with Minnesotans, they're going to fuck with you worse. And that sounds like what you guys were doing down
Yeah,
there.
yeah, absolutely. I think we had people chasing him around to different towns. You know, we had someone here 40 minutes, literally stuck behind him, 40 minutes to a bigger town north of us. You know, it was a nonstop, constant monitoring of the situation. I felt I, it's hard to put it to words because I wasn't really worried about me at that time. You know,
Well, you got kids, you're worried about them.
I was worried about my kids. You know what's going to happen. You know, if we don't do this, we're just going to let them come and they're going to march. If they feel they can do whatever they want in this town, they're going to come back. They're going to sit here,
Yeah.
It
and
just
we
get
can't.
worse.
It will just get worse for us, right? So we felt that after the first day, they realized, oh shoot, you know, we're going. We need more numbers because the first time they came, it was maybe about 7, 8 cars. The second time they were here, it was significantly more than that.
Really.
Of your cars following them around, right?
Both more ice,
Yeah.
and there was significantly more people chasing them around.
Okay.
You know,
You know,
so
you talk about numbers, and I just want to throw this in because this is one of their tactics. You know, they pick people up, they'll hold them for 30 days, and they'll let them back loose. But I read someplace they get $168 a day per detainee. Well, at one time there's 70,000 people locked up. You take $168 times 70, then take it times 7 days, and take it times 30 days. You know, so that yeah, people are getting rich off of this. Go ahead.
Well,
yeah,
Howard and Felipe, did either one of you have any direct interaction with ICE agents or an ICE agent?
No, the only place, and it was down at the Whipple Center, but when I was down there, they weren't arresting people, you know, and right then that was right during I got kind of lucky. There were a couple days there that the judge canceled the tear gas and stuff, and it took a couple days to put it in front of another judge where they got their tear gas back. And I just happened to get in there on a couple of them off days. I was real lucky there.
Well, the other thing too is like me, you're a pasty faced senior citizen, not
Yeah.
exactly the target audience for them. How about you, Felipe? Did you have any direct interactions with ICE agents?
I personally did not. I know there was a couple gals here in town that would get off the cars and go talk to them. Trying to get a name, right? Like who you here after? I mean, we know the community and such. We did had an interaction, and I said we because it was about a group of four of us in our cars, where there was a chief of police. I'm I'm, I'm guessing if I recall, that's his title. He was with them the second day. Kind of monitor quote unquote the situation, how they if they were doing their and his feedback was, guys, let them do their job. They have a list of people they got to pick up, let them do their jobs. So he was in the whole crowd with them. So that was the only thing he told us. We basically didn't listen. you know I
Did you
think
did you think I mean, a sheriff or a police department in a town like this is there to protect you? Did you feel like that wasn't the case? I mean, because there was shit going on that wasn't legal, wasn't constitutional. We know that's what ICE does. But did you think the law enforcement in your area just kind of not even sided with them, was kind of just there for show?
I think so. The way I see it is, at the beginning we were assured that the sheriff's office or the sheriff wasn't complying with ICE, but this was not a sheriff. This was a town police
Oh,
chief.
okay.
There was never statements made or anything like that. But we know what kind of town we have. It's very red. And there's nothing different from the police. I mean, there's always something going on, and not I would say I'm sure they got a handful of stuff going on, right? And they got to kind of help and whatnot. But just to see that presence there,
Yeah.
made a lot of people uneasy. Everybody that was chasing around, he knew it. We all saw it was just one guy.
Yeah.
We all saw who he was, and it sounds like, he was trying to make sure they did their jobs and let everybody know that they have a job to do. But it left a sour taste in a lot of people's mouth who saw him with him.
Yeah. Well, in Minneapolis, we watched the shooting with Renee Good. Minneapolis police was standing right there. He shoots this innocent woman. It's very clear what happened. He walks back, in spite of the fact they said he was hit. He wasn't hit. He walked perfectly fine back to his car, left the scene of the crime. That does leave a bad taste in your mouth. And I realize the police are in a tough situation because you got the federal government coming in there that, technically overrides what they're doing. But at some point, when the people are violating the Constitution and violating human rights, somebody's got to stand up. And I think that was the most disappointing thing when I saw what happened to Renee Good, what I'm hearing about what's happened in your town and other towns like that. There really is no protection. It's all of them against us. And I would have to think if there's an elected law enforcement person, you said this was a police department guy. You said he was the chief of police?
It sounds like he's elected.
Well, if he's elected, he's going to have to address that in the next election. And it'll be interesting to see. I mean, he should be pushed on that issue, and so should any other police officer that doesn't protect the citizens from violations of the Constitution, because that is their first number one fucking job. I don't care if it's tough because they're federal government.
Out here, our chief isn't elected. Our sheriff is elected. And when it comes to federal government, Mike, if we study our government, our sheriff can run the feds out. He can run the state patrol out, and that's because he is an elected official. But your chief of police is usually appointed by your city council.
Yeah, and if that's the case, I mean, I'm not so sure how it all works. I'm not so sure how it all works, but it was definitely a kind of like a. It was kind of like a bad taste in people's mouth. Like I said, we all know ICE is going to leave, right? And he's going to stay in this town.
Right.
We get to see him every single time. How do you become comfortable with that, right? Like, how do I become comfortable with that? Like, if he's going to be here, how do you even trust that?
How do you
that all things are going to
when they're gone and you have a police chief that you can't trust? It's hard for him to do his job. And at that point, maybe he needs to move on. Now with your kids are at least part Mexican, half Mexican. Yep. And as Howard describes them as his brown grandchildren, little racist, but
all my grandchildren are brown, all of them.
but with your kids, were you worried more about them witnessing something traumatic as opposed to being picked up themselves?
Yes. I think so. My kids understood. My kids understood that they're U.S. citizens, and by the law, nothing really can happen to them. But that's not the case, right? They saw the TV. They saw Renee Good. They saw, it was all over the news. Regardless of you trying to hide it or not, it was a conversation we had to have. And to me, the reason why I jumped on this very hard was, how do I make the switch? I was scared at the beginning, man, to be honest. It was scary, right? Like, what are we going to do?
Absolutely.
Like, I got workers that we travel for work, right? I own a painting company. We travel to people's houses. We're on the road a lot, morning, afternoons, right? Busy times when a lot of things are going on. And for me, it was after we met with the town and we divided into pods, right? And we're talking about what the issues we're seeing. We got some feedback that there was bullying going on at the school because of ICE. Kids were picking on the Hispanic kids because of ICE.
Oh, really?
And that was my for me, that was my switch. Yeah, I can't be scared because my kids go to that school. Now, it wasn't happening to my kids directly. It was happening in the high school.
Well, see yeah, I've heard that too, and that's what happens. That's what happened in this country. For a period of time, people believed that racism really wasn't a big deal anymore, but that was only white people who saw it. The racists were hiding under the rocks, and as soon as Donald Trump made it cool to be racist, then they felt emboldened to come out and be racist. And the same would be said for ICE. If ICE is coming to town, all these people, you got stupid little kids talking to Hispanic kids or kids from other countries and saying, "Oh, ICE is going to get you." And the problem with that is the worst kind of bullying, because kids don't understand what's going on, and that prospect is real. I mean, if not coming to get them, coming to get their parents or something, that's incredibly traumatic. And to bully a kid like that, that needs to be dealt with. And did your school do a good job dealing with that?
No,
Probably not.
So I'll share something here with you about January 26th. There was this gal from our town and we went to a school board meeting to speak up about it because the parents who voiced their concerns about what was happening did not feel the principals or the administration was doing anything about it. They did not feel that the school was going to support them or that the school was supporting them. So we took it to the school board I think we sat in that meeting. We had about 9 complaints. And I was like, I'll speak up. I don't care. If they want to hear it, they were not aware of any of it per se, from the school board. Of course, right? I was very calm about it. My speech is on the website and it's in there. It was very, I made it very heartfelt. I grew up in a lot of places, I remember going to schools, and every single school that I attended, everybody always talked about you're going to represent the school in and out of campus. You're going to represent your schools, with dignity, with pride. You're going to, ethically. And we were held to a standard that we needed to accomplish. We needed to be at the standard for the school, right? We didn't want to have a bad image for the school. But what about us holding that administration of the school to that standard? If we did bullying, if somebody punched someone, they got suspended. It was black and white. There was no gray area, but this became a gray area at the school.
Yeah. Well, I worked for a school district, a big school district, and I've dealt with other school districts because I've had kids. When it comes to something like this, fucking school districts typically are useless. They go, we don't want to mess with it. I'll tell you one time, I've told too many people this. My kids were bigger kids, so they didn't really get bullied, but there was a period when they were little, and we were getting bullied a little bit by one kid, and nothing I can do about the kid. So I went up to the dad and I said, "Listen, man, you got to stop your kid from bullying." And I'm not proud of this, kind of proud of it, not totally proud of it, but you got to stop. And he said, "Well, it's just kids having fun." I said, "Listen, motherfucker, if that kid bullies my kid again, I'm kicking your ass." He goes, "What?" I go, "Yeah, I'm going to kick your ass." Funny, it stopped.
Yeah. And that's what we're trying to avoid. When I went to school, this is back in 2006, 2007, there was a problem. We knew the school wasn't going to do anything. They were waiting at the bus stops, and back in the day, they used to, let's square up after school, right? Like that was the thing, and I'm going to beat you. I'm going to beat your shit, and then you're never going to talk bad about me again. That's what used to happen, and there was this whole stigma that Hispanic students were very hot-headed, and you couldn't pick on them. Well, that's the reason why, because we felt we had no support at the school. For a while, it got better, right? But now you got parents of kids who went through that school period where we were labeled hot-headed, and we were fighting after school. Now we're at the parents of those kids who were getting bullied. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So
I find out in high school, having a reputation is more valuable than being a tough guy. If you got a reputation, people don't fuck with you.
I think Howard said that quite a few times in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Um,
yeah,
I don't want to change the subject, but before we get done talking here, the other story I want to hear about is that guy getting away.
Getting what?
Getting away. Do you remember that, Felipe? He said he
Somebody
got arrested, and
escaping?
then he said, look over there, and everybody looked, and he took off running.
oh, yes. So one of the
You were
guys,
you were part of that, I thought.
yeah. So we were monitoring a community, and we were. It was weird. One minute, there's this guy that looks like he was in handcuffs, and then you look away, and then you turn back, and the guy's bolted. The guy just took off. They couldn't get him. They did not get him. The guy got away. My understanding, the guy got away. I guess I should have circled back and asked more questions about it, but I just froze. I couldn't even do anything. All you see is this like Ace Isaac just chasing this guy on foot through. It was the back of the apartment, so there was no streets back there. And I'm like, whatever happened, whatever the dialogue was there, that got the Isaac just to look away, and this guy bolted. It was a topic for the dinner table, right? It was. Yeah, like, how do you even explain that? You already got the guy. How do you get away?
Well, that's a good.
You know?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, of course, when you're dealing with ICE agents, you're not dealing with Rhodes Scholars or the highest quality military men. They don't call them the fucking Gravy Seals for no reason, you know.
The gravy seal.
They're trying to work off a double whopper, and chasing a guy down isn't very. And you know, look over there. I mean, I do that to my grandkid. I go, look over there, and she'll go, what?
So, yeah,
These dumb fucks.
that was the joke around it. Like, oh yeah, just look over there. I don't know exactly what it was said, but you can tell some people were talking, and all of a sudden the guy's bolted. It just tells you how unqualified people are.
Oh yeah, dumb as
You know,
fuck.
it's just, you know, they were flicking us off when we were chasing them. They were brake checking. They were brake checking us when we were in front, we were behind them. So it's like it's safety hazard. Guys got them they recorded them just not even stopping at stop signs. You know, because they want to get an extra second in front of somebody who's chasing. It's like it's so unqualified. And you know what? I'm gonna throw this out there. The most disappointing thing of everything that I would say 80% of the ICE agents that were out there were Hispanic.
Yeah, that's a good point. I've noticed that too. There's a lot of
Like, why?
Hispanic ICE agents. What the fucking deal is that? I mean,
Why? I mean, we know. I don't. You know, I don't want to get into a big debate on this, but there's a huge disconnect from people from Texas that are Hispanics, and there's some great people in Texas, right? You know, and I'm probably gonna mug with beautiful people in Texas. There's great people in Texas. They come up here, and through conversations, they hate the Hispanic community.
why?
What is it? Why? Like, why hate on your own kin, right? Like, you came from that heritage.
You
know,
think they're doing it trying to protect themselves from the white people? Yeah, I'm a Hispanic, but I'm with you guys. It's kind of like Dave Chappelle's thing where he was the blind KKK member. Same difference.
I think when they try to disconnect from their own, that's what they're trying to do. Is like, if I'm helping you, you ain't gonna be looking at me. You know, and it's just like, if you're putting somebody else down, you're not looking at yourself, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it.
There's a word for that. In the Hispanic community, we call them whites against.
What?
Whites against. So like white, and then
Whites against.
like,
okay.
Yeah. So they're labeled. You know, for the most part, what they don't understand is if they were not in that uniform and they were out and about, they will also be a target.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the disappointing part of it. That, you know, we all know those individuals are in there for a purpose. Whatever the purpose is, it's not a very good purpose. But you know, from conversations, from what you see, I mean, it's so abrupt, so so violent. Like there's no necessity. There's not a necessity for any of that. If they're really
sounds
truly picking people up,
it sounds
why
to me
not just
like they're
pick them up?
cowards. Sounds to me like they're
That's
cowards. Or
they
do
know
you
they're
think it
cowards.
they know they're cowards? Well, they're all
Yeah.
cowards. But do you think it has anything to do with I'm here? I don't want any more of your people or my people coming in here. Once I get in, I want it free and easy. I want to be able to get in, then close the door behind me so nobody follows me. I think there's some truth to that too.
I think a lot of them also a lot of them are also product of that of trying to fit in,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
because they don't
And
fit in. They don't.
the diversion, but we really found out how much they targeted the brown people that the cops did because remember they were fucking whining in Minneapolis. They were getting picked up when they were questioned when they were off duty,
Yeah.
and that actually made the news. Why are they fucking special? You
Well,
know,
that's
they were getting targeted because they were getting targeted, but the only reason they made the news and they got to whine about it is because they were off duty police officers. You didn't see anybody else getting to give their side of the story, if they weren't police officers.
that's the interesting thing. There was a situation where there were some women members of the House, Republican women Republican members of the House of Representatives, and they were angry because the Republican men, weren't treating them with respect. The fuck do you expect? Do you read Project 2025? Have you listened to anything they say? You think you're special because you're in the House of Representatives. You're still a woman. You think you're special because you're an ICE. You're still brown. They'll use you what they can use you for, but they don't like you anymore. They don't they don't trust you, and they would certainly cut your throat if given the chance. That's what these people don't understand. White supremacists and these sexist and anti-Semite people, they'll play along for a little while, but eventually they'll come for you too. And I don't know why people don't get that. I mean, there were Jews in Germany that did the same thing that Hispanics are doing with ICE or whatever, but they ended up getting their due in the end too. They got to last a little longer, but they weren't treated any better than because it's not about being part of the group. It's about being fucking brown or being an immigrant. You got to get that. You can't protect yourself just by joining the group. They'll use you, but then they'll kill you.
Yes.
Have you now? Tom Homan said that he was going to pare back the ICE, and we know he didn't do that. Officially, didn't do what he said he was going to do. The talk is now that there's like 650 ICE agents here. Have you guys noticed any kind of activity recently in the hinterlands of Minnesota?
Not so here. I think the last time we had an ICE agent sighting was last week Wednesday, but it was more of a pass through than anything else.
Yeah.
We haven't seen any of it here. It has died down from what we noticed. Right, people are still out and about, kind of if there's a vehicle that matches the descriptions, they go check it out. They'll sit there until somebody gets into the car. Right,
Yeah.
if they're at a hotel or whatnot. But that was the only sighting we had the last week. But that's pretty much this week. I haven't really kept up with the group. We've been pretty busy working, but it's the community here. I don't want to say they're back to normal, but they have kind of ease out back into their jobs, into the work, into the kids going to school over the last week or so.
I wonder if you guys have noticed something. I heard somebody else talking about this. Have you noticed in the last week or 10 days, you haven't heard much about deportations? You haven't heard much about ICE? And some people are suggesting that finally the Republicans are figuring out wow, this isn't popular. This is going to fuck us up for the election. So they're kind of pulling back on that in spite of the fact that was their main thing. Now we got a war in Iran and they're trying to dig themselves out of that. It has to do with Donald Trump's ADD. He can't focus on one thing at more than one thing at the same time. But I think they're getting the sense that this deportation thing is working against them. I don't know why it took you so long. We knew that from the fucking beginning, but they're kind of pulling back from that. They won't say they're pulling back from it. They'll just ease back a little bit. And I get that sense. I don't know if you guys do.
Yeah, it's definitely a topic. But I'll tell you what, whatever they do, we're not going to forget.
Oh no.
No, it's going to be there. It's going to be there on election day. Reminders are going to be there.
And
afterwards.
And are they going to ramp up someplace else, or are they waiting to get more holding facilities? You know, they're having trouble with that too right now. And, you know, because I think at any given time, it's more about how many they can hold more than they can deport, because they get paid for holding them. You know, Dilly stays full.
Yeah. But you know, we've got the situation with Christy Nome being fired. They're going to bring in this Mark Wayne Mullins. I've got a rule of thumb. If a guy goes by 3 names or 2 names hooked together, I don't fucking trust them. They're either serial killers or they're backwoods country fucks is what they are. But Mark Wayne Mullins, I don't know if he's going to be the guy or not ultimately. But let's be honest, everything comes down from the top. Any decisions. And if Donald Trump feels like this is hurting his popularity, and it is, I don't know, they're apparently finally getting used to or understanding that, he's going to pull back from that. And now he's got a whole other quagmire with this war. I'm curious what you're thinking about the war, Howard, and you, Filipe, with having kids. That would be my first focus. If we're getting into a new war and all the troubles that come from that, I'd be worried just by virtue of having kids too.
Let me run this down. It was a week ago Monday, my 3rd daughter left to be an officer. And that takes about 8 months. And and she was in this before Donald Trump ever got here. So I'm thinking that since she's in the Air Force Reserves, but as long as she's in, being in officer training may be the best place to be.
Yeah.
Because probably. They're not good. Yeah, they probably won't activate her. And then, Donald Trump, when he's seen the gas prices going up, he said something about we're almost done with this war. But one thing, I don't know if you heard about this, but Eric and Donald Trump Jr. 2 days ago, they merged their golf club firm with a drone manufacturer.
Yeah.
So they're I wonder if they're getting ready for the fucking long haul here. Donald, you can't go by what he says because he don't never hold his word, but they're getting ready to make some money off this war.
Well, yeah. I mean, they're making money all over. What was your first thought when you heard about this war, Filipe? For your situation, for your family?
Honestly, it's unfortunate that's happening. But again, I go back to what you stated, what you see in the last week or 10 days. I think it was just something else related to what's going through our administration's head.
Yeah.
If we're going to do something, let's finish it, right? Like they put so much emphasis into the eyes. Look, 2 dead citizens that in Minnesota alone. There could be more that we don't know about, right?
Right.
Like all those, the ones that probably pass and detaining centers, and those don't get really shared much. But if you really think about it, it's unfortunate that's happening. But I feel it's going to be just another pod of the thinking and the reactions of our administration, and then they're gonna move to something else.
Yeah,
it's tough when you have kids. It's tough to explain what's happening too, because they want to know. They hear it. They're not just living life and not really seeing what's happening outside. How do you explain it? especially when, my oldest is asking, why would we bomb school?
Yeah. Yeah. I have a rule of thumb for Donald Trump, and I've had this from the beginning based on his entire history. There's one rule with Donald Trump that's an absolute. You got death and taxes. And the third one is whatever Donald Trump does, he will fuck it up. He will fuck it up every time. He will do something. He'll feel strong about it. But we're going to send out mass deportation. I'm going to get popular because of it. And then he does it, and it backfires on him. So then he tries something else. I'm going to start a war with Iran. I'm going to wipe out the terrorists. And he goes in there thinking it's going to be 3 days because he thinks he's the most powerful gorilla in the room. And then it doesn't happen. Then Israel gets pounded. Then Iran's been waiting for him. Now he's kind of stuck in a tight situation. This is a worse situation for Donald Trump. ICE was bad, but this is worse because oil prices going through the roof. People are dying. They tell us 8 people have died in this war, Americans. That's bullshit. There's got to be more than that. There's just too many things. They're hitting embassies and military installments. We can't trust them to tell us the truth as to how many people have died. We just heard that there are 150, 160 people that are injured that we didn't know about until recently. I think you're right. I think, it's always a distraction, but it steadily gets worse and worse. And for a guy with that kind of personality, my experience with narcissists is they get to a point where they can't control things. It becomes overwhelming. And that's where the crash is, but it gets very ugly and it affects a lot of people.
It does. Tremendously. And that's, I think, people who have drank that whole Trump vibe are never going to see it like that. They're never going to see the effect of, they're just going to live it and they're going to suck it up. And they're all, one of the things that I don't, this is the most politics I ever talked to, and probably in my life, with 2 people, 2 other people, and I appreciate the time. And like I said, every conversation that you could possibly have with somebody else who supports what's happening right now, regardless of what it is, the killing of Rene Good, the killing of Freddie and ICE and the war now, they'll either tell you that Kamala will do it worse, that another president has done it worse, and this is nothing. He's fixing the country, America first. Where, man?
Well, yeah, that's the thing is a lot of people who do TikToks and do podcasts, they will bring on Trumplafucks, as I call them, and debate them. And I've done that a few times, and it's fun while I'm doing it. Then afterwards, it was so easy. It's like kicking a puppy, and I kind of feel dirty after the fact. But it's just a way to get more views and more listeners or viewers or whatever. Right. And I'm just not interested in doing that. My experience with talking to Trumplafucks is that I can tell them in the most concise terms with rules and laws and truth, and they will never get it. So at this point, it's not worth talking to them at all. Do you ever find, you said this is the most you've talked about politics, and if we cover something that you're uncomfortable with, don't worry, just say it. But you don't have much political interaction. I mean, obviously you live in a red town, so they're all over the fucking place. And some of these Trumplafucks just can't help themselves. They know who I am and they know what I think, and they'll stand back for a little while, but eventually they got to come up and say something. And then that's where my kind of standoffishness ends. You say something stupid to me, I'm going to straighten your shit out. And they don't like it. And then, oh, you're unhinged. Motherfucker, wait. You ain't seen Unhinged, motherfucker. I'm calm now.
Yeah, I tend to use that. My mom used to say all the time, we'd rather see, you rather have one crazy than having 2, meaning there's already a crazy person. And if you sit there and you listen to that and you try to convince them that it's not right, that makes you the other crazy, right? So I try to stay away from it, just for the sanity of it. I can sit there and debate, just like you. But from my perspective, I'm going to focus on what affects me, right? And I'm not saying it in a bad way, but I want to know what's going on with the Hispanic community that I can do to help my Hispanic community. And over the last month or 3 months now, the white community, for a lack of better words, has came up significantly and helped the Hispanic community. 100%. Everybody seen it. So in this town, we have a business owner, very vocal about all this stuff. Racist as hell, man. And this is how screwed up some of these people in town are. They keep him in business because, that's just who he is. Don't pay attention to him. That's just who he is. No, that's not how he is. Dude is racist as hell.
How he is.
It is how he is, but why are we enabling it, right? Dude is vocally on Facebook racist, making racist comments, making racist jokes, and everybody just whatever. Dude serves good food.
Do me a favor. After the show, tell me who it is. If he's on Facebook, I'm going to introduce him to a bigger asshole.
Yeah, so
like I said, let me tell you about. Go ahead.
Like I said, the politics side, it's very tough for a Hispanic, and I'm talking about myself, because to be honest, a lot of times we don't even feel like we belong here. Like, I'm a U.S. citizen. So a lot of times I'm here and I don't feel like I belong here. And then I'm in Mexico, and a lot of times I don't even feel like I belong over there just because my mom is there, right? So like, there's a saying, not even in Spanish, it's going de aquí de allá, which kind of means like not from here, but neither from over there. So I'm stuck in the middle, right? And to us, to my generation, because my generation is the ones that feels it. My parents, they know they're from Mexico. I want my kids to feel they're from here because they are from here. And I want them to be welcome. They feel welcome here. And this is why we're doing what we're doing with the community. And we're not going to stop. I think this is just the beginning, so the town saw what we needed. The town responded. I think other communities did the same. All communities around Minnesota did the same. Nobody was out there really protesting the same way they were protesting for ICE out. Those guys that wanted ICE end, they were not out there protesting the same way. No. So they can't really say that they believe in what they believe because they're not really pouring their hearts out to do it.
Right.
So
what were you going to say, Howard?
Oh, out where I live, I think it's even more red than where you guys live. But, I go around with my hat. I go around with my shirt. I have my No Kings hat because there are a few Hispanic people out here. And I want them to know that there are some allies out here. I wear my whistle. I do all that shit. But the other thing, and it's also good for me, because I'm very much an activist, and people know. And if they start in on me, I just tell them I'm a liberal motherfucker. Are you sure you want to go? But the other thing where it comes in good is we're so far and few between out here. When I run into other what I call blue people, they got time to stop and talk because it's not too many of us that have in common with each other, if that makes sense. So when you find somebody that that is blue, you kind of, you got to talk for a minute because we can talk to each other about shit that they can't talk to another person in the community about because of the political, they're on the other side of the fucking fence. They're on the stupid side of the fence.
They are. Well, Filipe, you talked about how it's difficult to talk about politics and get into that mess because of you being Hispanic. But it's also because you're young, you're in business, you got kids, they're in school. You're really not in a position to stir too many things up because you're trying to keep a lot of things in line. And that's why I think it's important. People like me or your father-in-law, we're retired. We don't have to answer to anybody. We say whatever the fuck we want. and ain't nobody can do about it. I mean, people have tried with me. They're gonna dox me or whatever. They never get it right, but they try. Because I'm gonna call your
Yeah.
boss. I don't have a boss, motherfucker. Go ahead, call them. I'm gonna call your family. Family knows better than to. They all agree with me, or better not to talk to me about it. So I think it's important that some older people that have that freedom, that truly have their First Amendment right, speak out and keep speaking out for the benefit of our kids and our grandkids. And I hope more people that are in similar positions, because I get a lot of people to listen and they still have jobs and they still have situations where they don't feel comfortable about it. So there's got to be some loudmouth white motherfuckers like us to be speaking out and sticking it in these other old white motherfuckers' faces.
And you know, I gotta say, I run a service business, right? And I started from the ground up, and over the Super Bowl, you know,
Yeah.
one I have some of my customers on my Facebook. They follow me. Well, not really, like, I don't really have any content, but they add me on Facebook, right? And we were watching the Super Bowl. We watched the halftime. We enjoyed it. My kids enjoyed it. My wife enjoyed it. We were watching at my brother's house, and we just posted like, "Oh, that was a good show," or something along the lines. Like, I speak Spanish. I understand it. It's pretty cool. One of the gals was pretty upset about it. And she said, "Go woke and go broke. We're gonna have to find somebody else to serve as their home and whatnot." And the community just jump on it, man.
Yeah.
Jump on it. By the moment, I think by the time within 5 minutes, there was like 25 comments on that post. Before I even could reply, it was just, yeah, it was just like you said. There's people who really, don't have a problem voicing their stuff. I was very professional when I replied, because obviously I'm not going to pick a fight for that same reason. I feel like I can't pick a fight because I already feel like I'm minority at the bottom of the pile, right? But other
Yeah.
people don't feel the same. They're very vocal about it. And it was really cool to see other business owners jump in that post, comment on it, and say, "Hey, this is fucked up. This is screwed up. Sorry, for my French, but this is screwed up. You're not. There's a reason why you should be writing this stuff on Filipe, and so we get to see it. That was the first for me,
Yeah.
and I felt, and I never really got any of that. So just to see it happening to me, you imagine what happens to those who don't speak English, to those who have disabilities, those who, regardless of their color or not, people are just out of control at times, and they think they're okay because they have an enabler. Because they have an enabler that allows them.
Right. Well, I think Howard and I are of the same mind that we dislike bullies, and I think racism is the epitome of bullying. Um, I'll tell you a story. I lived in a pretty white bread suburban suburb of Minneapolis. Um, and we had a storm come through, so everybody needed to get a new roof. Okay. So I had people come in, do my roof, did a great job. And 99% of the time, the people doing the roofs are Hispanic crews. And there was a guy across the street from me who I don't, this was prior to Trump, but he would be a Trump humper. Um, he complained and said, "I don't want any Hispanics on my roof. I only want white people." And we all looking at him like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" So he gets this white crew out there. I've got a Hispanic crew. Everybody's got a Hispanic crew. Do a great job. Get it done fast. He gets his white crew out there. Uh, he's got a 14-year-old daughter. This white crew is talking shit to his daughter. They're getting in fights amongst themselves, throwing hammers at each other, smoking pot on the roof. And I walk over to him. I go, "Dave, yeah, those white motherfuckers, you really nailed it with that, didn't you? You really got to," and then they did a shitty job. And I just pounded on this guy. I go, "Why don't you just get somebody who's good at it? What difference, what color does it make to get your roof done? Don't you want it done right? Or do you have to be racist about it?" I moved shortly after that, and we haven't talked since. So I don't know where we're at right at this point.
That's what I always bring up, people that want to put down the Hispanic community. I just tell them, I hope your fucking roof goes bad. That's all I say.
Yeah, no shit. No shit. How, with what's going on with the deportations and now the war and stuff, how does that impact a small business owner? And I mean, are you feeling any impact either with your employees or just money? I mean, with gas prices going up, that's going to cost you more money to do what you need to do. Are you concerned about those sorts of things?
I think with the employee side, it's been a concern since Trump joined an administration, right?
Right.
I think it was it's very obvious that he was going to tackle those things that he said he was going to tackle, because we divide them in pots and we know where the chain is going to follow, right? Like where the chain is going to go. They see an impact because they already feel when they're walking into a home. I have a whole Hispanic crew, right? And although they're U.S. citizens,
They're nervous.
they're nervous. A lot of times they feel like a customer could have a question and they don't even know how to respond sometimes, because it's like, you haven't talked to me all day. Now you're going to ask me a question. Am I doing a bad job? When it comes to the other stuff, I mean, do I see an impact on customers and whatnot? I think there's always going to be an impact, just because of I'm a people's person and I can read people. And then sometimes I get the sense that I'm not going to get the job because of me.
Yeah.
I said 100%. There's times where I'm wrong, and I'm like, oh shoot, But at the end of the day, I got to put food on the table, and I got to support those employees that I have, and I got to feed my kids and help the community like we've been doing it for the last few years. I got to go out there and find the work, and
Yeah.
it is just like anything else. I can't create the excuse for me, because then I fail as a
Right.
person, as I fail as a provider. So it's definitely gotten tough. A lot of times I feel like I can't even be a people person around some of those folks, but it is what it is. At
Yeah.
times,
There'll be some people that just never give you a chance just by virtue of their racism or whatever it is. They're just not going to give you a chance. It's not worth wasting your time.
Right.
I've been in business for myself too, and I know what hustling's all about. I never had to deal with people not hiring me because of the color of my skin. Some of them didn't like my personality now and again, but that's the burden I got to fucking bear.
Yeah.
Um, let me ask you this, as to Howard and to Felipe, from different perspectives. One of the things we've seen in this country is we're older and seen the 60s and 70s and all this stuff. Sometimes it's always darkest before it's dawn. Maybe the storm hits hard and then the sun comes out. Do you feel like we might be at a pivot point where it's just really gotten bad and people are um, feeling traumatized because of this, that we come out the other side when Donald Trump chokes on a Big Mac and shits himself to death? When that's done, we vote out all the Republicans. Uh, do you get a sense that we might be coming to a better time? Like I always tell people, I say, you know what? Right now, let's not even talk about Obamacare. Fuck it. They tried to destroy Obamacare. What we should be focused on is universal health care. We should have been talking about it in the first place when Obamacare came. Fuck it. Now's the time. People are struggling. They're losing their health care. We've been traumatized. We need to get universal health care. And the same thing with, immigrants and all this stuff. Do either one of you feel like we're at a turning point here? I mean, it's hard to say that now because it's so fucked up now. But I just get a sense that at some point when it does turn, we might be in sunnier days.
I
You know what?
felt
You ever
go
go
ahead.
ahead? Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I,
It's fine.
I felt a few times that we were at the turning point, and then we never got the fucking turn. So I hate to stick my neck
Yeah.
out there too far, because I keep saying we're not going to change any Republicans to Democrats. They will stay home and not vote. But that doesn't cure the fucking stupidity of the people.
No. No, I
We
don't know that
got to
we can
do,
ever fix that. We just have
well,
to
the only
kind of
way we can,
oppress them.
the only way that we can fix it is continuously with our messaging, and we got to continue, because it goes back to the old adage where you got to tell somebody something 7 times for them to get to remember it.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
have to message.
absolutely. Go ahead, Felipe.
Yeah, you ever heard that um the saying, you don't know what you have until it's gone?
Right.
Well, I think at one point even some Republicans are at that stage right now,
Yeah, I
but
do
they
too.
know there's a couple more fuck ups before we turn any pages here.
Yeah.
Um,
Unfortunately,
I
you're
think
probably right.
I don't think this is just me. This is just from conversations. We all know there's going to be more fuck ups and more trouble scenarios that we're gonna have to deal with the current administration before we make a switch to something better. Um, Unfortunately, do we know what those are now? ICE could come back. Work and get bigger, and it's unfortunate because we know what the current administration we have. It's everything is possible.
Yeah. I've told Howard, I've told other people that after the 2024 election, I thought they'd let Trump run a little bit and then he'd do something crazy and then they'd shut him down or impeach him or somehow kind of rein him in. And then when they didn't do that, I was surprised. I'm surprised that they've let it go this long and this far. Um, but you can kind of see that Donald Trump is getting a little nervous. He's on the run. Somebody asked him about the bombing of the school in Iran, and he said, "Oh, that was the Iranians doing it." Yeah, but they had Tomahawk missiles. Well, everybody's got Tomahawk missiles, and then of course Pete Hegseth and everybody else won't say that. Um, he gets questioned about it. He seems a little nervous about it. And then it comes out today that the study and the investigation is done, and categorically it was done by the Americans bombing this school. And he's asked about it today. Of course, he says, "Oh, I hadn't heard about it." It's Felipe. You got how old are your kids?
My oldest is 13.
Okay, so you had them when they were younger. It's kind of like when
Yep.
your kid takes a color crayon and writes on the wall, and you say, "Did you do that?" They said, "No, didn't do it." Well, you're the only one with a crayon in your fucking hand. But that's how that. I mean, it's amazing how we're dealing with such a toddler, and he's used to bullying or used to bullshitting his way out of it, and it just doesn't seem like it's working anymore.
Yeah.
I think what he's going to try is just pulling out of there, but I think there's going to be long-term consequences. I really think we're going to see attacks on U.S. soil. It's going to be called terrorism, but it's going to be a direct result of what he's doing right now.
I don't know if you heard what was announced today. Um, FBI says that there was some communications with Iran that Iran may use drones to attack California.
Yeah, I did hear that. Yeah.
Now, the trouble I have with people in general, when Donald Trump says something or the administration says something, they immediately believe them because they're afraid or whatever. I have a different take on this. The idea that Iran, while they're in the mix of this war, would run a boat because they'd have to run a boat outside the United States to launch the
Launch
drones
them. Yep.
to hit California with those bombs seems a little unrealistic to me. I would more likely say that the Republicans, Donald Trump, the Trump administration are saying these kinds of things to try to get support for what they're doing, the fuck up they're doing in Iran. You better be scared in California, you blue state. They're going to bomb the piss out of you. So we're just here to save your life. I think it's more likely that that's what he's doing than actual danger of Iran running a boat. I mean, we were bombing boats in the Caribbean, for fuck's sake. If there's a boat out there with drones, you don't think we could bomb them? Jesus Christ.
Speaking of bombing the boats in the Caribbean, I don't see how anybody could be surprised that we went into Iran because, Donald Trump bombed 8 different countries before we bombed Iran, whether it was out in the ocean or in the country themselves, and nobody said anything. Why would they say anything now? The Republicans did say if we went to Greenland, that'd be something a little too far, they'd probably impeach him. But then he turns around and goes to fucking Iran and nobody says a word.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
I worry, Felipe, I worry about, as I've told you, I worry about my kids and my grandkids. I'm 65 years old, going to be 66. My life isn't going to change no matter who's president because it's pretty well set. I'm on the downside of life, Social Security and a pension and just retired and all that stuff. But I'm very concerned about my kids and grandkids because when I die, I don't want to leave them with a pile of steaming shit. That's kind of why I do this. It's often said that millennials, you're a millennial, I'm guessing, of that era.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And there's some animosity toward boomers, and in a lot of cases that's justifiable. I think the biggest problem we have in this country is there's little or no concern about the younger generation as they're coming up. Saddling them with school loans that they can't afford, putting them in a position where they can't buy houses or pay rent because they can't make enough money. And this is all because of Republican and some Democrats making it that situation. I don't understand why they do that because coming up in 2028, the biggest amount of voters will be millennials and Gen Zs. And if you don't leave them in a good financial position, they can't buy houses, they can't buy cars, they can't take trips, they don't have discretionary money. And guess what that does to our fucking economy? How do you feel as a millennial who's running a business, which I know is hard because I've run some businesses? Do you feel like you have been abandoned by this country at all? Not because of your race, but because of your age?
I'm going to be frank with you. I think I have a different perspective, and not very different from what you were saying, what we were explaining. I think it was more than abandonment. I think it was more of a we can push this into you, like the school loans. We can increase them because we can.
Right.
Right. But to me, so let's say me being a first generation Hispanic. Mexican American, however we want to call it, me being a first generation, to me, there's more that I got on my shoulders to do for my kids because my kids will deal with the second generation Hispanics. We know my kids are going to go to college, and what I don't want is for them to get in debt because it's going to be brutal, right? It was brutal for me. It's going to be worse for them, so I started a business so I can help. I want to make sure that they're safe. Just like you said, I don't want to leave my kids with a bunch of shit. I don't want to do the same. I want to make sure that my kids are going to be, they're going to have a good path to choose what they want to do. And if I can assist them in any way, shape, or form, I'm going to be here for that. And that's why I started a business. I worked for Corporate America for 15 years, either at the plants or in a, in a kind of like a corporate setting. And then I wasn't really making any strides. Not promotion wise, but saving wise. My 401k was maxed every year, and I still feel like I wasn't really going anywhere. Right. And so now I carry I'm going to say burden of making it as a first generation Hispanic, and it happens that I'm a millennial. There's first generation Hispanics who are not millennials, and they never really went anywhere because there was no stigma on it. For us, there's a stigma. We got to make it. There's no other option because our kids if we don't make it, we don't help our kids lay that path, the path for our kids, they're not going to make it. There's a huge difference from kids who are not Hispanics my age and kids who are Hispanics my age, because my parents had me here, and that's pretty much it. You know, there was no yeah, and there was no help with first car. You know, to
no
be honest, there was
generational wealth.
there was nothing. They were here basically living paycheck to paycheck, sending whatever they could back to help, you know, build what they have in Mexico. And here it wasn't the case. You know, I was just like many other kids. I was living on free lunches, you know, and I was living off, you know, stuff that most kids wouldn't live off, you know. And it's I was just afraid that, you know, it was tough for me. It was going to be tough for my kids, you know, and all of them. So I did this so I can help them, you know, and you know, Howard and I talked about this all the time. You know, how do we look in the future? Like, we obviously can't really prepare right now, but every day is something that we can do for the future. And some of the conversations we had, and I know I talked to Nicole about this, but staying where I wasn't gonna solve any of my kids' problems. So I had to do something better for that. You know,
Right.
But what you don't realize, and I think what Mike was kind of asking, is it's harder for you to make it than it was for me to make it. It was 20 years ago, it was easier to make money than it is today. And 20 years ago, when you got paid $1, it was worth 65 cents instead of 25 cents, you know. It's harder to make it nowadays. I don't care if you're in the corporate world, if you're especially
Absolutely.
starting your own business, it's real hard.
Oh, it's very hard. And you know, the thing I'm saying is that this country, whether you're MAGA or not MAGA, the way it's set up right now, as young people take over, this isn't sustainable.
No,
The,
no.
Not only the people that you're trying to oppress are going to suffer, but the country's going to suffer. You know, all the oligarchs can take as much money as they want, but if they got nobody to buy their shit, everything fucking crashes down. And I can't see why Republicans and even the oligarchs don't understand that. You got to cultivate that middle class because they're the backbone. They're the one paying the taxes. They're the one buying the products and services. They have no money, then you're killing yourself on top of it.
sure, absolutely.
The Republican Party is run by the oligarchs, and there's a lot of fucking poor Republicans in there, and that's what the problem is, because they think if they vote with the rich, they'll get rich. I don't know what they think, but I'm just saying, you know, oligarchs are Republicans, but there's a lot of piss poor Republicans too, where if they were Democrats, we could do more as a party, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. They've been too stupid and they've been sucked in and drank the Kool-Aid. We're getting toward the end, and I just want to bring this up in passing because I think it's important that we talk about this every time I talk, or as much as I can. Um, Over and above everything else, we need to address the Epstein files. And the reason I bring it up is because Felipe has young kids, and this has got to hit particularly hard hearing the stories and hearing the things. I don't know if you heard this story. There was a report that the FBI was hacked in 2023 and they hacked into the Epstein files. Now, apparently, the person who did the hacking, and we don't know who that is, was so appalled by the stuff that he hacked out of there, you know, the videos and all this stuff, basically went back after hacking them and said, listen, motherfucker, I'm turning this over to the FBI. And then the FBI said, we are the fucking FBI. And that's where the story ended. But that tells me why we're seeing other countries. Because if you hacked into the Epstein files and they have a value now, this shit's going to go to the highest bidder. That's why we're seeing countries do this. I'm hoping that that's the thing that breaks this thing open, because they're now going to the DOJ saying, listen, now that we know it's been hacked, you're susceptible to blackmail. So the only way to fix that is to release all the shit. Now, that probably won't work with the DOJ, but the Epstein files is top of the news. It goes away for a little bit, then it comes back up. It's never going away. This has got to have kind of a a reaction for somebody with young kids?
Uh, I think this whole topic has been a shit show from the beginning.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of people a lot of the conversations that you hear, is how come Biden didn't release him? I honestly don't care who released him. I don't care who's in him. I want everybody who make anybody suffer be accountable for it.
Right.
Point blank, because how do I know my kids are going to be safe if they report something, if I report something, right?
Exactly.
I mean,
All these kids reported things, or they don't listen to them. I mean, the bottom line here is whether we're talking about Democrats or Republicans, it's not about party at this point. It's about egregious crimes.
yeah.
And whether we're talking about Democrats or Republicans, it's clear what happened here. We have guys that are wealthy, white guys that are wealthy and have power, and they get a pass for everything. They believe they can do whatever they want. And up to this point, they have been allowed to do whatever they want. And when they show up in the DOJ, whether it be in Biden's administration or Trump's administration, go, I don't want to touch that because that's got too much potential problems, and that is a red flag on this government. You have to question everything about this government on both sides of the aisle if they're allowed to let something that horrific happen and just let it pass because some white guys are rich.
And to be honest, I mean, you look at it. One of you guys mentioned it earlier in the podcast. With the racist stuff, it was there. We know it was there.
Yeah.
We know there's people out there who are hurting kids now. If we continue to hush this and we show that we're letting people get away with it, it just enables those individuals to continue to do it. Because we're not making an example out of anybody right now. We're making a fool of it. We're making a fool of ourselves with this whole topic because it could be easy. It could be easy handled if you're in there, and if you're responsible for something, you got to pay. But those out there looking from outside, they're actually committing these crimes. Obviously, they're not going to stop because they feel that whatever they're feeling, like, oh, somebody's getting away with it. My, like in this case, some of the people that I, in their mind is probably some of the people that I envision to be a king is getting away with it. I can get away with it too. So it becomes more, it enabled situations that might just trigger him to do it more and to more kids.
I think what it shows too is that we definitely have a two-tier justice system in this country.
No question.
And I think one thing that will break Trump is because I talked about there's a lot of fucking stupid, poor Republicans. This kind of breaks it down to where instead of being Republican and Democrat, it's the fucking rich against the poor. It's the rich that have always protected the rich, and that's going to stop. And I think it may come in a back door, like from another country. Today is day 82. The Trump files were supposed to be released 82 days ago. I don't call them the Epstein files. I call them the Trump files because he was mentioned over 1 million times in the 3.5 million pages that were released, and there's another 3 million to go. But I think what's going to break him is that people are going to figure out this is a two-tiered justice department, and they're going to that needs to come to an end. It's poor people that suffer.
I think what we're finding out too is that Donald Trump just wasn't a buddy or a customer. He was part of the business. There's no way there was that much money involved that he didn't want to get a taste. I mean, there were, everybody talks about the island, but we have New Mexico. There's an investigation going on in New Mexico at that ranch. It's years after the fact, so I don't know what they're going to find. But there were crimes committed not only on the island, but New Mexico, in Florida. At Mar-a-Lago, there are crimes that are claimed to be committed there, and his house in New York. So there's all kinds of possibilities. There's all kinds of evidence that the Oversight Committee already has that they haven't released. this has got to come crashing down, but it's just so difficult to watch them, to hold so tight, to protect these pieces of shit. And when it's all said and done, we need to address the people who covered this up. There's a massive cover up going on, and people need to go to jail for that cover up.
Absolutely.
I thought I read today that one of Epstein's ex-accountants are coming out with some stuff now, and I didn't get to do a lot of reading on it yet, but it goes back to follow the money, Mike. Follow the money.
Well, yeah, in the oversight committee, Epstein's accountant is what he said he was, testified in front of the oversight committee, and it was really, really interesting. Of course, he said, I didn't know of any bad things. I was just the accountant. And he was lying because we know he was involved in, the properties and involved in a bunch of stuff. But he was particularly involved in paying off victims. They called it gifting this money to them, but it was paying them off. They had to call it something different. And in the testimony, they got him to say, and he probably didn't want to say this, that he ended up paying off a victim who had accused Donald Trump of raping her. So that's an interesting tie to it. Now they're trying to say, well, he didn't really mean that. No, that's exactly what he meant. He was under oath. He had to tell the truth. And now you're going to try to switch it around. But slowly but surely, things keep coming out about Donald Trump's connection. And he was so connected, it was ridiculous. They're going to try to get that accountant back because he fucked up a lot. Now, this accountant said, I had no personal relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, barely knew him. But you want to hear something funny? In his will, Epstein left him $25 million. I wish somebody I didn't know left me 25 fucking million dollars.
Fuck, I wish I knew somebody that had 25 million.
And no shit. Well, I'm going to wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast. We're about that time. We usually go about 90 minutes. That's what we did here. Filipe, thanks for joining us. First time on, you did a great job, and I appreciate you taking the time.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
You probably got to get up in the morning, go to work, right?
Yeah, just at 5. Not a big deal.
Yeah, I don't have to get up. I get up whenever I get up, so no one needs to feel sorry for me. And I know Howard's probably not going to be up before fucking 9.
No, probably not. Not for a while. I am getting calls though already for townships getting their shit lined up.
Oh yeah, you're getting to spring now, and shit starts happening. All right. Well, thank you guys for showing up. I'm glad we did this. I think people will get a lot out of it. For those of you listening, thanks for taking the time. I hope you have a great day, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.